what's your advice for how we should be talking about and framing the 2020 election? And for the social studies teachers, how should we be discussing this upcoming election, especially knowing we're probably going to be teaching about it remotely?
I think one, we're going to have again another like record year Native candidates running. So I think a lot of that, again, Native women, more Native women are running this year. My last count, like total this year was north of like 140. But now like in the general election, it'll be a little less than that, but still more than 2018. And I think a lot of it is, Indigenous history is not really taught in the classroom. I mean, it's something that I had to teach my students, even though I taught journalism, electives per se, but when the day came around, I had to also implement like, history lessons in there, right? Like Indigenous Peoples Day, why is that versus Columbus Day, why the name's problematic, why it's also a controversy today. So that also had to backtrack and show them the history and make them think about who's writing the textbooks and think about what they're learning too, right? And I think there's just great resource out there. It's actually here. I have actually one book of it. It's Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. I don't know if you can see it. It's a great book. I can send the link in there, but it's also actually for younger students. A Native author teamed up and I guess adapted it for young people. And actually I was really glancing at it before this. There's like a preview of it of like notes for teachers that you can go back and look in, which was great. Because I thought they saw that it was a super dense read, and so they wanted to break it down. And so, it breaks it down like the Indigenous people's timeline of like the termination era, the relocation era, and contemporary versus like what American history is about, and civil rights, industrial age, like it's broken down differently. And so I think that's a great resource for there. But as part of like voting this year, one resource is the Native American Rights Fund came out with a report recently. It took them 5 years to do. And actually, I think I have it up here. I can find it for you. And this really breaks down the history of it and current obstacles Native people are facing right now in voting. So if you go to Native American Rights Fund and you bring up this report, I can also send the link in here too. They did this 5-year report and they traveled around Indian country or different Native communities around the country to see what was, other obstacles that Native people are continuing to face today, voter suppression, access to the ballot boxes, what unique resources or other unique barriers they're having to do, voter ID laws, tribal ID laws, but this really breaks it down. It's super long, of course, maybe for kids, maybe high school students can also look at it. But I think this was definitely a huge resource, at least for me and our team who are covering elections, because we always had to grapple and like look at different sources and compile them. But the Native American Rights Fund, they've been around since 1970. They do a great job of, covering this overall. So I think those are two big resources that teachers can use like with the 2020 election. And also just, I guess, watching our coverage too, because a lot of it, I feel like people think that Native people can't vote. They're still out there just, I don't know, doing whatever, drinking, stereotypes that they have out there. But now that they're, contemporary people running for office, you had people, they're speaking at the DNC just last night. You had the Navajo Nation president giving remarks. So I think those current events, staying current, I think is really crucial